What is the number one thing you want people to do when they're on your website? Take some type of action, right? You want them to fill out a contact form, make an appointment, sign up for a class, or maybe even buy something. Well, in order for them to be able to do any of those things, they need to be able to complete a form. And if your form isn't accessible, they can't do that, and you're losing customers. So today, we're going to talk through form basics. Hi, and welcome back to the channel. If we haven't met yet, I'm Nicole, and our goal here is to help you build an inclusive brand without needing a degree in computer science. Today, we're breaking down the anatomy of an accessible web form. Forms are the heartbeat of your website. They are how people contact you, buy your products, and sign up for your newsletters. But if a form isn't accessible, you're literally leaving money on the table. So let's talk through each part of a form and why it's important or what its job is. First up is the form title. Think of this as a sign on a door. Before someone walks in, they need to know what's inside. Is it a store, doctor's office, or a restroom? If you have a form on a page, it needs a clear heading that tells the user exactly what the form is for, whether it's contact us, request a quote, or sign up for the newsletter. Following the title is the instruction section. Not every form needs an instruction section, but some things to consider here would be tell people what the form is for. Is it a survey about something or what the information will be used for? And this is where you'd want to point out any special notes like any fields marked with an asterisk are required. Depending on what platform you're using, these two elements are added in different ways. In Google Forms, for example, we're all probably familiar with that top section, which holds the title and instruction. But if you're in Squarespace, the form blocks do not have a section built in for the title and instructions. So in here, you would need to use text blocks in order to add these right before your form. Now let's talk about form labels. Labels are the text that sit outside of the box where people are typing their answer. So think of first name, last name, or email. These form labels are a requirement and they must sit outside of the box, no ifs, ands, or buts. Why? Because the text inside the field, you know that usually light gray text that disappears once you start typing? That is our next element and it's called placeholder text. Placeholder text, or oftentimes called helper text, is not required, and we usually suggest that people don't use it if they don't need to. Because it usually disappears when people start typing, it can cause a lot of confusion and frustration. Instances where it might be okay to use are if you had a form label for a website and your placeholder was examplecompany.com, or if you have a form label for first name, the placeholder might be Mary. The form label is telling people what is needed, so it doesn't really matter if they can see the word Mary or not. Now, you may wonder, what if you need to give more information in order for a person to fill out a certain field? That's where you add a description, or some platforms call it field instructions. This is text that is outside of the box underneath the form label. An example of this might be if you have a birthday field and it needs to be filled out in a certain format. Or for a question where someone can choose multiple answers, you might add choose all that apply just underneath the question being asked. Now let's talk about input fields and field types. The input field is simply the area where the user will be typing their answer. There's not much more to say about these, just be considerate of design and color contrast here. Make sure the field is defined by a border or a contrasting color to its background. And you'll want to ensure that the text color when someone is typing has enough contrast. Each input field is assigned a field type. These determine what type of answer you want to get. In most platforms, there will be pre-built fields for options like name, email, phone number, and other common fields. If for some reason you don't have those options, you would want to use a short text field. Other options are date or birth date, address fields, short text or long text, and options for drop-downs and checkboxes and radio buttons. Checkboxes and radio buttons often get used wrong, so check out our video on those if you need help while building your form. The last element to touch on is your button. This is a no-brainer. You obviously need a way for people to submit the form. For most buttons, your text will be sign up or submit. But do consider being more descriptive if that button will do something else, like take them to a download or redirect them to somewhere other than a confirmation. And of course, like all other buttons on your website, make sure the text and button background all pass contrast minimums. So those are all the basic parts to a form. If you have these covered, you're on your way to having an accessible form. We touched a bit on checking the color contrast on certain parts of your form, but there are a number of other considerations to ensure that your form is fully accessible, like field sets, which is grouping similar content together on your form, element spacing, keyboard navigation, focus states, and error messages. Forms are such a crucial part of your website. If people can't complete them, you're losing newsletter signups, project inquiries, and you could even be losing people at the point of checkout. If you'd like help verifying the functionality and accessibility of your forms, check the description below for how to connect with us. In the meantime, check out this video YouTube thinks you'll like to continue building your inclusive brand.